From the outside, Isabel Torres' suburban life seemed perfect. A spacious, beautiful house, a lush green lawn, a pool sparkling under the warm sun. Everyone envied her family, but behind closed doors, things were far from that picture. Lucas, her husband, spent his days buried in work, eyes glued to his phone, barely noticing her. The warmth between them had faded, leaving Isabel invisible in her own marriage. Lila, her 20-year-old daughter, was about to leave for college, deepening her loneliness. She missed Seville, where she once danced flamenco, free and alive. Isabel stood in the kitchen washing dishes, her heart heavy when the doorbell rang. Lucas ushered in Mateo Vargas, his old friend from Seville, for a small gathering. Mateo stepped in carrying a bottle of sangria, his smile confident, his voice warm and deep. He spoke of flamenco nights, guitar playing, his gaze captivating. When he brushed her hand while pouring wine, Isabel felt a jolt of electricity. "You look like a Seville dancer," Mateo said, his eyes twinkling. Isabel blushed, turning away, her heart pounding. "I'm just a housewife," she muttered, telling herself it was just a compliment. But a spark from Seville had ignited, drawing her toward a dangerous temptation. Mateo wasn't just a passing guest. He stayed in town for weeks, working for a Spanish wine import company. His visits to Isabel's home became frequent, each one carrying a breath of Seville. A bottle of deep red Rioja, a flamenco record, or stories of vibrant, lamplit plazas. Isabel found herself waiting for those moments, though she dared not admit it. One afternoon, with Lucas at a meeting and Lila out with friends, Mateo showed up with a small gift basket, Seville olive oil and a jar of bitter orange marmalade. "To taste a bit of my home," he said, his smile disarming her. They went to the kitchen, cooking a plate of patatas bravas, the spicy aroma filling the air. Mateo spoke of crowded tapas bars, where people gathered late into the night. Isabel laughed, forgetting the stack of bills on the table, forgetting Lucas's silence the night before. When he showed her how to slice potatoes, his fingers grazed her wrist, light but enough to make her catch her breath. She pulled away, pretending to focus on the oven. That night, Isabel lay in bed, Mateo's image lingering. She recalled how he tilted his head when listening, how he said her name with a soft Spanish lilt. Lucas snored lightly beside her, a stranger in her bed. She told herself to stop, but the next morning when Mateo texted, inviting her to a small bar to hear flamenco, she hesitated, then agreed. The bar was dimly lit, the guitar's wail piercing the air, a dancer stomping on the wooden floor. Mateo sat across from her, his gaze piercing. "You used to dance like that, didn't you?" he asked, his voice low. Isabel spoke of Seville, of nights twirling her skirt under the moonlight, her heart racing. He touched her hand lightly, not looking away. "You still have that fire, Isabel. Don't let it die." His words were an invitation, a challenge. She pulled her hand back but couldn't deny the stirring in her chest. The next day Maria came over, bringing coffee and a probing look. "You're different, Isabel," she said, stirring her latte. "Every time Mateo's around, you're someone else." Isabel forced a laugh, pretending to be busy wiping the table. "Don't be silly, he's just interesting." Maria raised an eyebrow. "Interesting? He's Lucas's friend. Don't let this go too far." The warning made Isabel freeze. She wanted to argue, but part of her knew Maria was right. In the days that followed, Mateo kept visiting, bringing new stories, new melodies. Once, he played music by Jenny Esserin C. Das Lied von Cameron de la Isla, pulling Isabel to the backyard. "Try it, just a few steps," he said, taking her hand. They swayed to the rhythm, her breath mingling with the breeze. When he pulled her closer, she felt his heat, her heart racing. She pushed him away, stepping back. "I shouldn't," she whispered, but her eyes betrayed her. Mateo smiled, not pushing but not leaving. Isabel began to notice changes in herself. She wore brighter dresses, hummed while working, but jumped at the sound of her phone, fearing it was Lucas. She looked at him during dinner, searching for the man she once loved, but saw only exhaustion. Mateo, on the other hand, was a breeze from Seville, awakening a part of her she thought was dead. Maria called again, her voice stern. "Isabel, I'm worried about you. Mateo's not just passing through. He knows what he's doing." Isabel brushed it off, but the words clung to her. She stood before the mirror, staring into her own eyes. What did the woman in the reflection want? Freedom? Passion? Or just a moment's escape from reality? She didn't know, but she knew she was on a dangerous path, led by Mateo. Isabel couldn't stop thinking about Mateo. Every time her phone lit up, she checked it, hoping it was him, knowing it was dangerous. Mateo was like a haunting flamenco melody, weaving through her mind. His visits grew less casual, their Seville stories laced with lingering looks and meaningful touches. Isabel knew she was slipping, but the vitality Mateo brought made her reluctant to stop. One noon, with Lucas on a business trip and Lila at the library, Mateo arrived with an unexpected gift. A red silk shawl, the kind flamenco dancers tied around their hips. "I saw it at the market and thought of you," he said, his voice low. Isabel touched the silk, soft as her Seville memories. She wanted to refuse, but Mateo stepped closer, tying it around her waist, his hands brushing her back. "Dance, Isabel," he whispered. She laughed, trying to lighten the mood, but when he played a Vicente Amigo track, she let herself go. They danced in the living room, her steps clumsy but passionate. As the music slowed, Mateo pulled her close, his breath warm on her cheek. Isabel froze, her heart pounding. "We shouldn't," she said, her voice trembling. Mateo just looked at her, his eyes promising something unspoken. She started sharing more with Mateo, as if he were her only escape from the suffocation. In a park under an oak tree, she spoke of her dream to be a dancer, of nights practicing in her Seville apartment, moonlight streaming through the window. Mateo listened without interrupting, then shared his own story, a boy who left Seville after losing his love in an accident. "I came here to forget," he said, his eyes misty. "But meeting you, I want to remember." His words touched her pain, making her feel understood. When he took her hand, she didn't pull away. But the risks grew. Maria, with her sharp intuition, asked blunt questions. Over coffee, she leaned across the table. "How many times have you seen Mateo? Don't tell me it's just friendly." Isabel clutched her coffee cup, forcing a smile. "You're overthinking, Maria. He's just a friend." Maria's eyes didn't waver. "I see how he looks at you. And you, Isabel, you're falling." Isabel left the cafe feeling exposed, Maria's words echoing in her mind. Lila noticed her mother's change too. One evening, as Isabel wore a new dress and extra makeup, Lila frowned. "Where are you going looking like that?" she asked, half joking, half suspicious. Isabel fumbled, saying she was meeting Maria, but Lila's gaze made her uneasy. She realized she was drifting from her daughter, once her confidant. Guilt crept in, but Mateo's presence washed it away. One afternoon, Mateo took her to a street corner where flamenco artists performed. The stomping, clapping, and guitar stirred memories of her youth. Mateo stood close, his warmth palpable. "You belong here," he whispered, his hand on her shoulder. Isabel turned, their eyes locking, and for a moment she forgot Lucas, Lila, herself. A passerby bumped into her, snapping her back to reality. She stepped away, mumbling an apology, and hurried off. That night, Isabel couldn't sleep. Sitting by the window, she watched the pale moonlight, recalling fearless nights in Seville. Mateo was a bridge to that girl, but also a danger. Her phone buzzed with his message, "You're running, but I know you feel it." She wanted to delete it but couldn't. She had gone too far, committed an unforgivable sin. Lucas returned from his trip, weary as ever. At dinner he mentioned Mateo. "He's staying a while, huh? What's he been saying?" Isabel nearly dropped her plate. "Just wine stuff," she said, her voice high. Lucas nodded, but his gaze lingered. She felt trapped in her own home, torn between Mateo's fire and Lucas's coldness. She knew it couldn't go on, but Mateo, with his Seville smile and promise of freedom, was pulling her toward a point of no return. Isabel lived on a razor's edge, each day a battle between heart and mind, desire and guilt. Mateo was no longer a fleeting breeze, he was a fire consuming her. His brief texts and visits with that Seville smile made her forget Lucas, increasingly distant, and Lila, who sensed her mother's change. Isabel knew she was in forbidden territory, but the life Mateo brought was impossible to resist. One evening, with Lucas away and Lila at a friend's, Mateo called. "There's a wine-tasting event outside town," he said, his voice low and tempting. "Come with me, Isabel, just once." She knew she should say no, but her heart won. She chose a fiery red dress, flamenco's color, and left the safety of her routine life. The old warehouse was transformed into a slice of Seville, candlelight flickering, the scent of wine mingling with guitar strains. Mateo greeted her at the door, his black shirt clinging to him, his eyes smoldering. "You're the fire tonight," he said, handing her a glass of shimmering Tempranillo. They wandered the stalls, tasting wine, laughing, but every touch and glance carried the weight of the unspoken. When the band played a lively buleria, Mateo pulled her to the dance floor. "Live, Isabel," he whispered, guiding her steps. The music swept them together, their bodies close, his heartbeat against hers. As the music slowed, Mateo held her tighter, his lips brushing her ear. "Come with me," he said, his voice husky. Isabel knew he meant more than leaving the dance floor. She trembled but didn't push him away. He led her through an exit to a small room lit only by moonlight. Isabel felt everything melt away, the cold night, the fear of discovery, the line between right and wrong, swept away by Mateo's intensity. His hands caressed her with unexpected tenderness, but his eyes held an uncontrollable storm. Every touch was a declaration of life, a challenge to the numbness of her days as a wife and mother. They spoke no words. Words were unnecessary as Mateo's lips found her neck, leaving burning trails like marks of possession. Isabel tilted her head, her breath ragged, her chest heaving as if burning from within. His hands slid down her back, pulling away layers of fabric like the last barriers of reason. When their bodies met, Isabel's skin came alive after a long slumber. Each touch, each press of his body, was a crashing wave, hot, fierce, yet achingly gentle. His hands explored her as if it were the first and last time, unhurried, reverent, yet wildly passionate. He whispered her name, each syllable dripping like honey, making her shiver with unknown ecstasy. Isabel arched as Mateo's deep kisses trailed down her stomach, lower, following her secret pulses. The air thickened, heavy with their breaths, whispered words and stifled moans of pleasure. His movements drowned her in a boundless tide. Isabel clung to him, her nails grazing his tanned back, leaving faint marks. They entwined, hot and chaotic, as if the world could explode outside, but here, in this moonlit room with the scent of wine on their skin, there was only them and a fire nothing could extinguish. But when it was over, reality stabbed her like a blade. Isabel sat on the bed's edge, her red dress crumpled, hands trembling. Mateo stroked her hair, his voice soft. "You don't need to regret this. It's what we both wanted." But Isabel couldn't look at him. She had betrayed Lucas, the man she vowed to be faithful to. She had betrayed Lila, who trusted her. She stood, unsteady, tears welling. "I have to go," she said, her voice breaking. She drove home, her mind a storm of Mateo's touch, Lucas's face, Lila's eyes. She pulled over, clutching the wheel, sobbing. Her phone buzzed with Mateo's message, "You're everything I've ever wanted." Her finger hovered over delete but didn't press. She had gone too far, committed an unforgivable sin. She thought of Lucas, of the days they loved each other, and guilt crushed her. At home, Isabel stood in the dark living room, moonlight streaming through the window. She touched the red silk shawl, now a symbol of her sin. Seville was once a dream, but now it was a nightmare. She had let that fire burn her marriage vows, unsure if she could face Lucas or herself again. Isabel lived in a torn world, each day a dangerous dance between passion and regret. After the warehouse night, she felt she'd crossed a threshold she couldn't uncross. Mateo was no longer just a Seville memory or a tempting glance. He was part of her, a secret she carried like the red dress hidden in her closet. But thoughts of him brought sharp images of Lucas and Lila, painful reminders of the cost of her betrayal. They began meeting in hidden corners of town, where strangers' eyes couldn't reach. A quiet park at noon, sunlight filtering through leaves and dappled patterns, became a place for whispered words and fleeting handholds. Or a small motel on the outskirts, with beige curtains and the smell of stale coffee, where Isabel entered with a racing heart, knowing she was risking everything. Each meeting with Mateo was like breathing again, as if he were oxygen in her stifling life. But at home she saw a stranger in the mirror, eyes gleaming with guilt. Mateo brought moments that erased reality. One evening he arrived with a small wooden box of homemade tapas, golden croquetas, garlic fried shrimp, and a jar of red romesco sauce. "In Seville, food is how we say love," he said, setting the plate before her in the dim motel room. He played Paco de Lucia, the guitar weaving into her heartbeat. They ate, laughed, and when he pulled her into a slow dance, their bodies melded, she forgot her vows to Lucas. But when the music stopped, the noose of guilt tightened around her neck. The risk of discovery loomed like a shadow outside the window. Maria, with her old friend's intuition, grew sharper. Over coffee she leaned close, her voice low and firm. "Isabel, you're not telling me the truth. What's going on with Mateo?" Isabel gripped her cup, forcing calm. "I told you, just friends." Maria's gaze didn't falter. "I see how he looks at you. And you're falling, Isabel." Isabel left the cafe feeling stripped bare, Maria's words haunting her all night. Lila, with a young woman's sensitivity, sensed the change. One evening, when Isabel returned late, Mateo's cologne lingering on her, Lila sat in the kitchen, eyes on a book she wasn't reading. "Where were you all evening?" she asked, her voice light but sharp. Isabel stumbled, mentioning a friend, but Lila's look chilled her. She was losing her daughter, once her closest confidant. Guilt gnawed, but Mateo's presence washed it away. Lucas, despite his preoccupation, noticed small things. One morning he picked up a bottle of Spanish wine from the counter, a brand he didn't recognize. "When did you get this?" he asked, his tone casual but eyes probing. Isabel stammered, saying it was a gift, her heart pounding. Lucas nodded but didn't believe her. She checked her phone obsessively, erasing Mateo's traces, but each deletion pulled her deeper into the abyss. Isabel knew it had to end. One afternoon in the park, she resolved to break it off. "We can't keep doing this," she said, her voice trembling but firm. "I have a family, Mateo. I can't hurt them." His eyes held pain, not anger. "Isabel, you and I belong together. You know it." He took her hand, gripping it tightly. "Let me take you away from this town, from everything." His words were sweet poison, making her waver. She wanted to run to his world of flamenco and wine, but visions of Lila crying and Lucas walking away stopped her. "I need time," she whispered, knowing she wasn't strong enough to end it completely. That night, Isabel sat alone in the living room, moonlight cold and unforgiving. She touched the red silk shawl, a reminder of what she'd lost and was destroying. Mateo was the fire she craved, but it was burning her family. She didn't know if she could stop or if she wanted to, but each step toward him brought her closer to ruin. Isabel felt like she was walking on thin glass, each step threatening to shatter everything. Mateo was the breath she craved, but leaving him drove a thorn into her conscience. The suburban house, once a symbol of stability, felt like a prison, every corner whispering her lies. She tried to maintain normalcy, cooking dinner, talking with Lila, smiling at Lucas, but every action was heavy, as if she were playing a role no longer hers. One afternoon, meeting Mateo at a small cafe outside town, he was distant. Instead of vibrant Seville stories or burning glances, he stared at his espresso, brooding. "What's wrong?" Isabel asked, her voice soft but anxious. Mateo hesitated, then spoke of Elena, his lost love in Seville. "She was everything to me," he said, his voice low as a well. "But I left her when it got too hard. I wasn't strong enough." His confession chilled her. She'd seen Mateo as a free spirit, but now wondered if she was just part of his escape. "Why tell me now?" she asked, sharper than intended. Mateo's eyes were earnest but didn't ease her doubts. "Because I don't want to hide anything from you." But his answer only deepened her unease. She left the cafe with a crack in the perfect image of Mateo. Meanwhile, Lucas noticed gaps in Isabel's life. One evening at dinner, he asked, "Do you talk to Mateo much?" His voice was calm but his eyes cut like knives. Isabel clutched her fork, keeping her tone even. "Sometimes about wine mostly." Lucas nodded, unconvinced. After dinner, she caught him glancing at her phone while she washed dishes. Her heart raced, but she deleted Mateo's messages. Still, Lucas's suspicion hung like a dark cloud, suffocating her. Lila, with her youthful sensitivity, scared Isabel most. One afternoon, Lila appeared at the park where Isabel and Mateo met. Isabel sat on a bench, Mateo beside her, his hand brushing her shoulder as he pointed at birds overhead. Lila stood meters away, eyes wide, face stiff. "Mom?" she called, her voice a mix of shock and hurt. Isabel jumped up, pushing Mateo away. "Lila, what are you doing here?" she asked, her voice shaking. Mateo stepped back, greeting Lila politely before leaving, but his look rattled Isabel. On the drive home, Lila asked, "What were you doing with him?" Isabel fumbled, claiming a chance meeting, but her voice cracked. Lila's eyes burned with doubt. "Don't lie to me, Mom," she said softly, cuttingly. The words sliced Isabel, revealing the harm she'd caused her daughter. That night, Isabel couldn't sleep. Sitting in the living room, streetlights filtering through the blinds, Mateo's story of Elena swirled in her mind. Was he truly in love with her, or was she a way to forget his past? And Lucas, did he know something or was it instinct? Lila's disappointed eyes haunted her, and she felt she was losing everything. She opened her phone, wanting to confront Mateo about Elena, but stopped, afraid of the truth that might destroy the fire she cherished. The next day, Isabel tried to mend things with Lila, suggesting a movie night, but Lila declined, citing schoolwork. "I'm not mad," Lila said, her voice cold. "I just want you to be honest." Isabel wanted to confess but feared Lila's unforgiveness. Her secret wasn't just a burden, it was destroying what she loved most. Mateo called, his voice gentle but firm. "We need to talk, Isabel. I don't want to lose you. But this time she felt no warmth, only fear, of discovery, of losing her family, of Mateo not being who she thought. She agreed to meet, but her trust was cracking, like a flamenco dance offbeat. Isabel lived in a relentless storm, each moment a hammer blow to the fragile wall hiding her secret. Mateo was a drug she craved, but each touch burned her family. The suburban house, with its sparkling pool and green lawn, was a stage where she played the perfect wife while her heart shattered. She tried to hold it together, dinners with Lila, stiff greetings with Lucas, but the truth stalked her, ready to tear it all apart. The climax hit on a rainy Friday night, the downpour drumming the windows like a war beat. Isabel was in the kitchen, hands trembling as she chopped vegetables, trying to banish thoughts of Mateo and the warehouse night. Lucas stormed in, soaked, his face stone cold. He slammed her phone on the table, the screen glowing with an email from Mateo she forgot to delete. Isabel, that night was fate. I need you. The words were a flame burning away her disguise. Explain this, Lucas growled, his voice drowning the rain. What is this, Isabel? The knife fell from her hand, clattering like a death knell. Lila, watching TV in the living room, rushed in, eyes wide. Dad, what's going on? She cried, but Lucas didn't look at her. His gaze locked on Isabel, red with pain and rage. Ask your mother, he roared, pointing. Ask her about Mateo, about what she's been doing behind my back. Isabel's heart shattered. Lila's eyes, hurt like a stab, held her in place. Mom, is it true? Lila asked, her voice trembling, tears streaming. Isabel struggled to breathe, her throat tight. I messed up, Lila, she whispered, tears falling. I didn't mean to hurt you. I just lost control. She couldn't speak of the secret meetings, the embrace in the warehouse, but even this partial truth was like pouring oil on fire. Lucas slammed his fist into the wall, the crack making Lila flinch. Lost control? He yelled, his voice breaking. You slept with him, didn't you? My best friend? You think I didn't notice you changing? The meetings with Maria, the strange wine bottles? Isabel shook her head, panicked. Lucas, please listen, but he cut her off. Enough. You've destroyed this family. Lila screamed, stop it, and ran to her room, her sobs cutting Isabel like a blade. Lucas grabbed his keys, his eyes ice cold. I can't stay here, he said, his voice dead. Deal with your mess. He stormed into the rain, the door slamming, leaving Isabel in a house echoing with ruin. She sank to the floor, face in hands, sobs blending with the rain. She'd imagined this moment in nightmares, but reality was crueler, a blade twisting in her heart. Unable to bear the suffocation, Isabel drove through the rain to Mateo's apartment, tears blurring her vision. He opened the door, shirt disheveled, eyes shocked at her drenched, trembling state. Isabel, what? She cut him off, shoving him against the wall. Lucas knows everything, she screamed, her voice breaking. That email, what the hell did you write? You've ruined my life. Mateo grabbed her hands, trying to calm her, but she yanked away. Tell me, Mateo. Who was Elena to you? You left her, didn't you? Am I just an escape, another mistake? Mateo slumped into a chair, pale. Elena is the past, he said, his voice rough. She wanted me to give up my dreams, stay in Seville. I couldn't. I left because I was weak. But you, Isabel, you're my truth. He stood, stepping closer, his eyes blazing. I love you. I'd leave everything for you, this town, this past. Just say yes. Isabel stepped back, her mind a storm. Love me? She laughed bitterly, tears streaming. Do you love me or the thrill of escape? I've lost my family because of you, Mateo. Lila won't look at me. Lucas, he's broken. She clutched her head, her voice shattering. I don't know who I am anymore. Mateo reached for her, but she pushed him away. Don't touch me. I need to know who I can trust, you, Lucas, or myself. She ran into the rain, Mateo's shout, Isabel, don't go. Echoing behind. In the car, she gripped the wheel, city lights blurring through tears. Seville was once a dream, now a blade. Lila's tears, Lucas's departure, and Mateo, her supposed salvation, might be her ruin. The rain stopped, but Isabel felt drowned in a flood. The storm of truth had swept through, leaving her amid the wreckage of her family and herself. Mateo, the fire that consumed her, was a memory she wanted to bury. Lucas and Lila, the ones she loved most, were wounds she didn't know how to heal. The suburban house, with its warm yellow lights, was a torn painting, and Isabel knew she had to mend it piece by piece. The day after the confrontation, Isabel stood outside Lila's room, knocking softly. Can I come in? She asked, fearing rejection. After a long pause, Lila opened the door, eyes red but no longer angry. "I don't understand why you did it," Lila said, her voice small but sharp. Isabel took a deep breath, tears rising. "I messed up, Lila. I got lost and hurt you. I don't expect forgiveness now, but I'll do anything to make it right." Lila didn't hug her but nodded, a small sign of hope. Isabel spent time with her, baking, watching movies, listening to school stories. Each moment was a brick rebuilding their bond, slow and painful. Lucas returned after 2 days, his face etched with exhaustion. They sat in the dark living room, lit only by moonlight. "I don't know if I can forgive you," Lucas said, not meeting her eyes. "But I don't want Lila growing up in a broken home." Isabel nodded, her throat tight. "I don't deserve forgiveness, Lucas. But I want to try for you, for Lila, for us." They agreed to start over, not from love but commitment. Short talks, quiet dinners were a fragile beginning. Isabel knew their love might never be the same, but she was ready to fight for what remained. To find herself, Isabel returned to flamenco, not through Mateo but her own Seville memories. She joined a community dance class, where stomping feet and wailing guitars woke her sleeping soul. She wore a simple black dress, no red silk or Mateo's memory. Each step faced her pain, her betrayal, her losses. She didn't dance to escape but to heal, to remember she was once a strong woman, undefined by others. One evening after class, Isabel stood before the studio mirror, sweat on her brow, eyes shining, not from Mateo or Seville, but from self-discovery, scarred but alive. She thought of Seville 20 years ago, twirling her skirt under moonlight, fearless. That woman was still in her, but happiness didn't come from distant dreams or a man. It had to come from herself. She stopped contacting Mateo. Once he texted, "I'll always wait for you." She deleted it, no reply, no hatred, just release. Seville, flamenco and Mateo were her past, not her future. Her future was Lila slowly opening up, Lucas staying despite his pain, and herself learning to rise from ashes. Isabel left the dance class, the night sky clear, stars twinkling above. She breathed deeply, the cool air filling her chest. She didn't know if she could redeem everything or if her family would heal. But as she walked, her shoes clicking softly on the sidewalk, she felt a new strength, the strength of a woman who faced her mistakes and chose to move forward.